Do you know why were women's heads shaved in France during the 1940s? After France was liberated by the Allies, many women were taken to the streets where they were publicly humiliated. These women were accused of collaboration horizontale. Their heads were shaven, as to take away their most beautiful traits. Some would be painted on their naked bodies with tar or lipstick, but all of them would be paraded in the streets. Most of these so-called collaborators were simply young women who had slept with the occupying Germans. Some would even be put on parade with the babies they conceived from the Germans. Some had to sleep with Germans to get food, others fell in love, and some were forced to. To the French it mattered little, as all LF then would be categorized as traitors and would be publicly humiliated. The Allies and even some French were disgusted by these acts. These actions also happened in Belgium, Italy, Norway and the Netherlands. Liberation was a lawless, chaotic time, when people had a chance to settle scores. Many innocent people got hurt or even killed because of the general lawlessness. Of course, in occupied countries, hardly anyone could claim they didn't collaborate at all. Even the resistance people had to compromise and collaborated in some ways at some time, in order to stay alive and carry on the fight. And all those people, shamed by their own collaboration, took it out on people who couldn't defend themselves, mostly women. But there were also totally innocent people who suffered. In that time of general lawlessness, some groups could not only engage in public shaming and beatings of people they disliked. They went much further than that. They founded ad hoc prisons and ad hoc courts with ad hoc proceedings and ad hoc executions. An interesting and telling story is one of Max and Madeleine Goa, two Parisians, who survived the occupation as best they could. They helped the resistance whenever they could, and collaborated as much as was required to survive. Essentially, nothing could be blamed on them. As Paris was being liberated, German snipers were the big scare. People saw German snipers everywhere, although real German snipers were long gone by the time Leclerc's tanks rolled into the city. Max and Madeleine Goa were warning the Allied soldiers march in from their balcony, and someone below pointed up and screamed "German sniper." Immediately a mob broke into their apartment and dragged them out. Max was shoved under a tank track and died right there, but Madeleine was held captive in some makeshift prison for a few days. After that, she was dragged through a kangaroo court of sorts. Not a real court, just some self-proclaimed resistance officers, running bogus trials not based on any laws but only their own judgment. Madeleine was tried in that court and executed by firing squad the next day. Later on a real investigation was conducted in the case, and the investigation found that Madeleine and Max died for no reason. Nobody ever identified the members of the mob that threw Max under tank tracks, but Madeleine's captor and self-appointed judge was one René Sentic, a communist piece of shit, who spent most of the war in a labor camp, but appointed himself captain of the resistance, and in 1944 sentenced Madeleine to death. He never suffered any consequences for his horrid actions.